One of my favorite things about pop culture is overthinking it. And the internet is full of pop culture theories, and The Office itself has no shortage. And while I could be redundant and just spout out some well-known theories about Toby being the Scranton Strangler, which he's not, or Jim having an affair on Pam, which he didn't, I'm opting instead to present some more obscure Office theories called from Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever else I can find them around the web. But for today's video, it's mostly Reddit. If you like this video, give it a like. It'll help me know if I should do more like this. So the structure is going to be really simple. I'll introduce a theory, I'll give supporting details, and then I'll give some of my commentary on it. So with that, let's get all conspiratorial. So I'm going to start off with something pretty simple. My favorite part of reading any of this is going to be the Reddit names. This one comes from Redditor Fun Panda, and at least that post was the first time I had ever seen it. And so the theory setup is this. In Season 4, when Michael and Jan are playing the most awkward game of dysfunctional house ever, we come to the understanding that Jan's income has gone from whatever a mid-range New York City paper company executive makes to approximately $0 a year.
Good luck paying me back on your $0 a year salary plus benefits, babe!
Which means that Serenity by Jan has yet to make any money. So fast forward to Season 5, and we get this exchange.
You remember last week when that girl went missing? Guess whose candles they used for the vigil?
Cool. Thank God they found her, too.
Oh, they found her?
And that's the setup. The theory here is that Jan, having broken up with Michael, has virtually nowhere else to turn. Jan, desperate for money, turns towards kidnapping a young woman in order to generate a lead to sell her candles for that young woman's vigil. That's why she looks so jarred when Kevin says that the girl was found.
Oh, they found her?
And like I said, this one was simple. I rate this theory fun, but no good. Is Jan capable of kidnapping a child?
Okay.
Yes, I think she is. And while she's hurting for money, I think the breakup with Michael, the pregnancy, and not having anywhere to turn was the rock bottom she needed to turn things around. Sort of. Also, if that girl was found, unless Jan completely eluded the police and this young girl's suspicion, she would have definitely been in jail for this. Still a fun theory. Moving on. This theory comes from Redditor GVH1112, but I've also seen this one floating around Facebook before. The setup here is that towards the end of Season 3, Jim has become relatively disillusioned with his relationship with Karen. And as they're both applying for the same job, knowing that only one of them can get it, they have this discussion along the way.
Okay, I was at the beach. We don't have a future in Scranton. There's one too many people there.
You mean Kevin?
And ultimately, Jim decides to pursue things with Pam, turning down an apparent promotion and breaking things off with Karen. And so the theory goes that Kevin is the one who convinced Jim when he asked Jim this the day of his interview.
So, Jim, who do you think is hotter, Pam or Karen?
When Jim tells Kevin,
You know what? Why don't you take the rest of the day, figure it out, and then come back and tell me what you got?
Will do.
All right.
this theory posits that there is an unseen conversation in which Kevin relays all of his thoughts back to Jim and convinces him that Pam is the right choice.
Then who do you think will get the job?
Karen. She looks corporate. Those little pantsuits.
I think it's going to be Michael.
And that's the theory. The biggest support that I can give for this is that Kevin is pretty astute when it comes to Jim and Pam's relationship.
They've been in remarkably good moods. Could be other things.
Are you kidding me?
So, is Kevin the unseen puppeteer behind The Office? I rate this theory, maybe. And so stick with me. I don't think Kevin ultimately convinced Jim of anything, except that Jim needed to make a decision. Kevin, as a mastermind behind The Office, is pretty fun. I don't think there's any support in the series to merit that at all. It's a good observation. Kevin, perhaps unintentionally, planted that doubt. The yogurt lid is what solidified Jim's decision. Moving on. Okay, and this one is fun. Very science fiction-y. And this one, again, it comes to us from Reddit via user RobDog19. This theory posits that Meredith is a future version of Pam from an alternate timeline in which Pam married Roy. So the support for this theory starts with their physical appearance. They're both Caucasian, they both have red hair, and they both have similar heights. And while they have different facial features, The argument is that Pam's younger, and the years of stress and drinking just weren't so kind to Pam. Another support for this theory is that we know that drunk Pam is pretty wild.
I don't know. What? Oh my God. You are so drunk.
She just doesn't seem to have that much of a reason to drink yet. Also in support of this theory are the strange Jim and Meredith connections. In season 9, we see that Meredith gets confused for Jim's wife.
And this must be your lovely wife, Pam. No.
Hell no. She
No,
wishes.
No.
In Michael's Last Dundies, Jim gets the Best Dad award, but Pam doesn't get the Best Mom award, Meredith does. It's also odd that Meredith both seems attracted to Jim, but also says she's afraid of him. Perhaps all these point out that Meredith and Jim have some sort of strange connection to each other, which would make sense if she's actually Pam from another timeline. Beyond those connections is the fact that Roy has an immediate connection with Meredith's kid.
Pam, I love this guy.
Which would be likely if Roy actually was that kid's father in an alternate reality. And then there's the lice episode in season 9, in which it shows that once Jim is out of Pam's life, even for a little bit, she begins to become a lot like Meredith.
Morning, Meredith.
What?
Oh, sorry, Pam. Yikes.
How did this alternate reality version of Meredith appear in The Office's universe? Well, the theory doesn't address that at all. It's just pointing out all of this combined to show that had Pam stayed with Roy, this is what her life would have turned out like. Divorced, or maybe never even married, a single mom, turns to alcohol and other vices. She would have ultimately taken any other job in Dunder Mifflin that she could have and stayed working there for the rest of her life. And that's the theory. And I'll rate this theory smart, but definitely way off. Clearly the show doesn't play with any supernatural or science fiction-y things at all.
Wait a minute. You said it was a magician, right? You don't think he could have used... It couldn't have been...
It's just...
But what is insightful about this, that I hadn't even thought of until this point, is that there are some parallels written between the two. And it's probably there to juxtapose the two of them against each other, which is not something I'd really considered until reading this. So I'm definitely going to be looking into that where I see it in these field guides. Moving on. Okay, and this one is only a month old and was posted by Redditor Harris' sister. And the theory is centered around Pam never actually failing art school. So the setup for this one, at the end of season 4, Pam gets accepted into the Pratt School of Design, one of the top art schools in the world. But in season 5, after failing a class, Pam decides she's going to leave art school for good. But this theory posits that Pam never actually failed art school. And the support for this theory is as follows. Pam is talented enough to be accepted into the school in the first place, which is definitely no small feat. Pam's art skills are cross-discipline and very versatile. Throughout the series, her skills in drawing, painting, and digital art are all shown. In addition to some natural talent, we see that Pam never struggles while she's in art school. She's shown to be able to cope with the stress of the workload, learning the software, and even tells Jim's brothers that one of her teachers thinks she shows a lot of promise. Late in her time in art school, she has this conversation with a classmate.
All I'm saying is, if there's even a teeny tiny part of you that really wants to be an artist, then I think you should stay here.
It seems to be at this moment that she's realizing that if she's going to do something with this as a career, it's going to be away from Scranton. And then lastly, we don't actually see Pam fail anything. We just hear that conversation she has with Jim.
Are you sure?
I just talked to my advisor. Failing.
Wow.
So why would Pam graduate art school and not tell Jim? Well, this theory posits that Pam told Jim that she failed in order to alleviate any disruption to the future of their relationship. We know that Jim and Pam are an incredibly supportive couple. She knows that Jim wouldn't rest until she was pursuing what really made her happy. Once she realized that pursuing a career in art would lead her away from Jim, she begins to have a change of heart. And I'm going to quote this directly from the Reddit post to wrap it up. I think that when she was with Roy, she yearned for a different life, and that art had been that idea of a different life she'd clung to. But with Jim, she no longer yearns for that different life, she just wants to be with him. So then theoretically, she tells Jim that she failed because she knows he'd be supportive of her failure as much as he'd be supportive of her success. And in this way, she knows that they can build a life uninterrupted the way that she's been dreaming of. I think this theorist is spot on with why Pam decides not to pursue her art career any further. It's because she's realizing that the future she wants is with Jim. Where I think this theory falls flat is that honesty seems to be pretty key in their relationship, and I don't think this is the kind of thing she would take to her grave. Either way, I'm a pretty big fan of this one. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Okay, so when I originally made notes for this episode, I swear I found this theory somewhere. Now, it's just mysteriously gone. So I'm gonna pull this thread that I started a few weeks ago. And this theory gets a little meta, so stick with me. We all know that The Office is a mockumentary produced by NBC. Within the story of The Office is a documentary crew who's captured footage on paper company employees for over 8 years. And that's all before they even begin to air the documentary. This theory holds that the documentary is actually just a reality show in which these characters of Jim, Dwight, Pam, Michael, and everyone else are actually just actors on a reality show. And I'm using actor here loosely, in the same way that anyone who's on The Bachelor or Duck Dynasty is playing themselves for the show, but there's definitely a director and a loose script written for every episode that these actors have to follow. And there are 3 main pieces of support for this theory. First, through multiple buyouts, firings, literal fires, and the economic downturn in a declining industry, the Scranton branch seems to be doing just fine throughout all of this, and is left relatively unchanged through the years. This is easily explained if this is just simply a reality show being produced. Another support for this is that it's strange that The Office skips forward in time pretty consistently throughout the series, as though multiple weeks have gone by in between these episodes. Where was the film crew during these off periods? Is something going crazy every day in the Scranton branch, or were you to believe that the film crew just happened to arrive when some of that crazy stuff was going down? And then lastly, there's just too many planned shots and excellent sound for this documentary crew to be handling everything on the fly. Filming is a nightmare, especially when you have no idea what's going to happen next. And the cameras always seem to be at the right place to get the right shots. And that's the setup and the support for this theory. So, the reality show theory, I rate this one pretty dumb, but pretty fun. Every point I listed above are pretty much just considerations that the real Office showrunners had, not the fictitious in-show showrunners. Still, it's a fun one to think about. And that's all I have for today. If you have any Office theories or any thoughts on the theories I talked about, leave it in the comments. I want to hear what you have to say. As always, consider giving this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.